Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football. The 4, 1, 2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump right in. So Heath Miller, the legend, the Pittsburgh Steelers legend, he talks with James Harrison how much retirement was a tough decision for him. And, it's never an easy decision for any of these players to retire from the NFL, especially if you're a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump into the article. Give me a second. Let me fix my camera. There we go. Heath was a great player for a long time for the Steelers and very well liked by the fan base. We all know that. Hold on, let me bring up the article. So this is what Heath Miller had to say. Heath Miller joined Debo and Joe Hayden. I'm supposed to be in the huddle. Heath Miller admittedly had second thoughts about retiring. Excuse me. First year out was tough. Some second thoughts, Miller said Monday on the Debo and Joe podcast, especially the first game. The Steelers played on Monday Night Football versus the Washington Redskins. But anyway, I'm excited. I'm going to watch the game. I turn it on, and 5 or 10 minutes into the game, I'm like, I can't watch this. I'm supposed to be in the huddle. I agree with you. Miller had been with the Steelers since 2025, helping them win 2 Super Bowls and also making 2 Pro Bowls. He was, I don't know who wrote this. He had a knack for being in the right place at the right time. Unfortunately, Father Time is undefeated. Miller's body got beaten up over the course of his 11-year career, and he felt like it was the right time for him to step away. Still, it's easy to see why he had such a hard time watching the Steelers game in 2016. Miller didn't leave at a low point with Pittsburgh, still a Super Bowl contender. That Week 1 game against the Redskins didn't start off too hot, though. The Steelers ultimately won 38-16. But they stumbled out of the gate. While it's unclear how much Miller saw, the Steelers' first 2 drives weren't pretty, ending with a quick punt and an interception, respectively. Had Miller come back, he likely would have been welcomed with open arms. James Harrison revealed during that same episode that he and former Steelers running back DeAngelo Williams, another great player that never gets enough credit for the Steelers. DeAngelo Williams was a great player. DeAngelo Williams tried to talk Miller out of retiring. You left a year or 2 early, Harrison said. We ain't going to fault you on that, even though we tried to get you to stay, DeAngelo and myself. He's talking about he's retiring. We're like, for what? What are you talking about? What? I done came back to this. You're leaving. Harrison actually retired twice, with the first coming in 2014. However, he didn't stay away for long. I mean, some players, they want to leave while they're still a great player. Other players, they want to play till their last breath. And Heath Miller, he made that decision. He was greatly missed by the Steelers. We all know that. Great player for a very long time. Pittsburgh Steeler through and through. You couldn't have asked more for the draft pick. Great player, great person. These players are hard to come by. I like Pat Freiermuth, the person, the individual, but right now the play is not matching the person that I like on the field. And unfortunately, in this business, you got to have both. So hopefully Pat Freiermuth will rebound also. So here's another Tomlin Here's another Tomlin addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers that didn't work out very good. You know, I couldn't figure out why the Steelers let go of Landon Roberts, considering he was our best run stuffer. He was really good in the run game. We let him go, and then we signed Malik Harrison, and we gave him big-time money. Malik Harrison got huge money for the Steelers. And Malik Harrison is about to be cut. He's about to be, you know, a cap casualty. Another one of Mike Tomlin's decisions to sign a guy that didn't pan out. Jono Smith, Malik Harrison. You know, I'd give Jalen Ramsey a C- at this point. DK Metcalf, we gave him huge money. This was a Tomlin decision, which I was all in favor of. I give DK Metcalf like a C+ at this point. A lot of these players are just not working out. Let's see what the analysts had to say. Analysts see Steelers making one more veteran cut this offseason. His cap space is worth more than he is. Ooh, that's brutal. I think Cole Holcomb is a very solid number 3. Williamson told Tim Benz on Breakfast with Benz. Who knows when and if that happens. But I don't think Harrison will be on the final roster. I think his cap space is worth more than he is. Carson Bruner is going to be a core special teamer. Tyler why do I always pronounce his name wrong? Bruner is going to be a core special teamer. Tyler Matakovich, I always get this one wrong. Makovich, Miles Killebrew guy, and he's probably going to make the team. The Steelers signed Malik Harrison last offseason, in part because they didn't know what they could expect out of Cole Holcomb, who was still working his way back from a career-threatening knee injury. If they are now comfortable with Holcomb, the Steelers can make a Harrison cap casualty. While they signed Harrison largely for special teams, Holcomb can also do that. And they found a new ace in the department in Bruner, as Williamson mentioned. Last season, Malik Harrison logged 294 defensive snaps and 158 special team snaps. He did miss 6 games due to injury, playing 40% of the Steelers' defensive snaps when he was available, and 54% of the special team snaps. While that's a respectable workload, is it the best usage of resources? No, it's not. I wanted to see if they could pull up his here's his contract. Matt Williamson is a draft analyst who has broken down the Steelers for years, and he believes Malik Harrison will eventually be a cap casualty. Signed to a 2-year, $10 million contract last season. Even then, people thought it was an overpay. The Steelers still owe him $4,750,000 for this season. And what do they have to show for it? Absolutely nothing. I'm sorry. The Steelers could have resigned a Landon Roberts for this price, or the price he was asking for. He was excellent versus the run. Malik Harrison misses 6 games. Mostly a special teams player, and he gets a 2-year deal, $10 million. God, Tomlin's decision-making has absolutely destroyed the Steelers. It's just like one player after the other. It just doesn't work out. They give him big-time money, and it's going to be a legendary defense. And meanwhile, you know, half the guys aren't even on the roster anymore. But hey, Tomlin's the greatest defensive wizard ever. Steelers continue to show interest in versatile draft prospect. I don't want the Steelers to spend a third or fourth round pick on Cash Jones. Let me make sure it was, Cash Jones. The Steelers are one of 5 teams that Jones has had a virtual meeting with, along with the San Francisco 49ers, Tennessee Titans, Falcons, Dolphins. The Steelers should be looking for a return man in this year's class, and Jones told Mello he believes he can fill that role in the NFL. He only has 4 kick returns for 58 yards in his college career, but he has the skill set to potentially return at the next level. I don't know. For his career, Jones has totaled 52 carries for 253 yards and 57 receptions for 573 yards. That's his whole college career. And he should be a 3rd to 5th round pick. He also recorded 9 touchdowns in his career. At his pro day, Jones measured in at 5'11 and a half, 185, and ran a 4.45 40-yard dash. Look, if you can get this player in the 6th round, I think he should be a free agent signing. If you're going to bring in this player to return kicks, The NFL, the way the kick return is structured now, if you're going to tell me that Jaylen Warren can't handle the kick return duties because he's too fatigued to run the kick return, I just think that's absolutely ridiculous. The kick return is much safer at this point. It's less wear and tear on the body. You know, how many times is Jaylen Warren really going to do this per game? 3 or 4 times? There's nothing wrong with having Jaylen Warren back there to return kicks. Caleb Johnson, whatever. I don't think we should waste between a 3rd round to 6th round pick on somebody like Cash Jones. I think he should be a priority free agent. But the Steelers are going to do what they got to do. He's not even a return specialist. It's not even like you're drafting the guy that you're like, oh, well, in college, you know, he had 4 kickoff returns for touchdowns in his career and 3 punt returns. Like, you know, it's not like a player that was playing outstanding on special teams. So why would the Steelers expect Cash Jones to come into the NFL and be an outstanding kick returner / punt returner if he hasn't even done it in college against college players? Where is the logic here? Where is the logic? I mean, I know it's an article, but whatever. It doesn't make sense to me. Fine, you want to bring him in as a priority free agent? Okay, fine. But I think that's a mistake. Charlie Batch, I agree with what he's saying here. In a position to move up, Batch doesn't expect Steelers to use all 12 draft picks. Expects the Steelers to trade some of those draft picks to move up in the draft. It's a good idea. A lot of these players are not getting graded as, you know, professional players. So it's about quality, not quantity. I've said that over and over again. Here's what Charlie Batch had to say. I just don't believe that the Steelers will have and use 12 picks for the rookies coming in. I just don't believe that. This is why over the last year or so, they were stockpiling those picks to be in anticipation of being in a position to move up, Batch said Monday on his Snap Count podcast. Obviously, that quarterback probably won't be in this particular draft, but I do expect them to draft up, lose some of those picks, and draft somebody impactful. Exactly. We need an impact player who's going to impact the team for the next 10 or 12 years. There are a couple of scenarios in the draft in which the Steelers trading up might make sense. It may be too expensive to move up into the top 10 from 21st overall. But the teens could be a spot to trade into if one of the premier talents in the draft drops for some reason. It wouldn't cost as much to move up a handful of picks into the middle of the round. But trading up doesn't have to happen in the first round. After picking 21st overall, the Steelers don't go on the clock again until the 53rd pick. Moving up from 53 would be much less expensive than doing so in the first round. If Ty Simpson or someone that the Steelers love at another position of need falls into the beginning of the second round, having 3 third-round picks makes it a lot easier to trade up. Here's my impression about Ty Simpson. The quarterback class is very, very weak going into this year's draft. And I said this about Jackson Dart. That quarterback draft class was super weak also. But I said, if you're going to draft a quarterback, draft the player that played in the SEC, who played against the most players that are drafted to the NFL on defense, because he played the better players. So if you're going to draft a quarterback, let's say the Steelers are like, we are taking a quarterback. No doubt about it, we're taking a quarterback. If it's not this Ty Simpson, again, Ty Simpson played in the SEC. He played the Georgia defense. Georgia alone has 8 to 10 players that are going to get drafted to the NFL. Every day at Alabama, playing against those defenders in practice. You know, he's playing the top-notch players on defense that the SEC pretty much sends the most players to the NFL on defense. So that's the player, that's the quarterback you have to take. And you'll be like, yeah, is it that simple? Is it that simple? Well, here you go. If you're going to draft a quarterback, it is that simple. You look at the player. Obviously, all the quarterbacks' numbers are going to be very similar. They're going to be similar to the same height. They're going to be similar to the same weight. They're all going to throw for 3,500 to 4,000 yards, regardless of the division that they play. So what separates them? What separates them? If there's no clear-cut Ben Roethlisberger in the draft, if there's no clear-cut, Eli Manning or Phillip Rivers, what separates them? What do you have to look at? You'd be like, okay, well, he played the Georgias, he played the South Carolinas, he played the Ole Misses. I'm sure I'm forgetting. I'm not really familiar with everybody in the SEC. But just when you play Georgia alone, you're pretty much playing, NFL defense for the most part. So it's a no-brainer to me. No-brainer. Let's not overthink things. Kid played the best competition. Let's draft him. If you're going to take one. If you're going to take a quarterback. If not, then don't take one. Don't take one at all. We have another analyst. Drafting quarterback Ty Simpson in first round should be a no-brainer for Steelers analysts. I don't really believe that. Is it a no-brainer? I don't know about that. That could be debated, but let's see what he had to say. If they have their chance to get their hands on someone who's shown flashes, who has talent the way Simpson does, to me, it's a no-brainer for them. Renner said recently on Pushing the Pile podcast, there's needs on this roster too. This isn't, I'm not reading this anymore. I don't want a first-round pick that showed flashes. I don't want a first-round quarterback that just showed a glimpse or a flash. I want steady productivity. If you take a quarterback in the first round, this has got to be your quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. We can't afford to draft another Kenny Pickett here. So I wish all these analysts that have no clue what they're talking about, especially when they're discussing the Steelers, it's like, I believe Aaron Rodgers is coming back. And guess what? If he doesn't come back, I believe the Steelers, if Will Howard beats out Mason Rudolph, I believe they're willing to go into the season and be like, you know what? Let's roll. Let's do what we got to do with Will Howard and see how it goes. But you can't reach. Would you rather get a first-round pick? Would you rather get an offensive tackle that's going to be on your roster for the next 10 years where you pretty much know, like, the offensive tackle from Utah, Fonto, the Samoan kid, I'll just call him the Samoan kid. I should call him the Samoan Giant. Would you rather have an offensive tackle that you know is going to be on your roster for the next 10 to 12 years, or let's get a streaky quarterback that didn't show much just because we need one? So this logic to me is baffling. Like, oh, Steelers need a quarterback, so we're just going to take anybody. Even if we don't think he's good, we're just going to take him because we need it. That's stupidity. That's what Tomlin did with Kenny Pickett. That's why the Steelers are in this situation 10 years later. So let's not go here. It makes me mad even reading this idiocy. It's just idiocy. Insider doesn't see consensus to wide receiver in 2026 draft. Teams could pass on position in first round. Well, Lemon, with his weird interviews, he pretty much talked himself out of the first round. Yeah, that's just being a weirdo. I don't understand how his agent, his people, his friends, his family didn't pull him off the effing stage and just tell him, yo, shut up. I mean, I know you're trying to be your favorite drill rapper, acting like a weirdo. Oh, yeah, I'm really about it, man. Yeah. Like a demonic weirdo. You really think that helped your draft stock? And I watch USC. I always watch USC. He's a great player. He's a really good player. But, I mean, he really hurt himself with these idiotic, I don't know what that was. But do I see the Steelers taking a first-round draft wide receiver? Why? Why would they? DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., 1 and 2. You know the Steelers are still going to try to develop Roman Wilson as a 3. Why would they go a receiver round 1? Make it make sense. Are the Steelers fully sold on Broderick Jones? I don't think so. I think it's 50-50. Are you going to take a first-round draft pick? You're going to take a guard? No. You're not going to take a guard. I mean, you got Joey Porter Jr. and Jamal Dean at corners, 2 legitimate starting corners. So your weakest links on the entire team. Okay, we know we need a quarterback, but there's probably not going to be worth one in the first round. So let's move on. Left tackle, safety, Caleb Downs. If the Steelers trade away 2 third-round picks to go up in the draft to get Caleb Downs from Ohio State, I'm not complaining. He was graded. He got a first round grade. He's gonna, not all of these first round picks have first round grades. He's one of the few players that does. A lot of people are comparing him to Troy Polamalu. I'm not going to do that. The guy's never played it down in the NFL. I mean, you can't say, he reminds me of Troy Polamalu. Just let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see him play a couple games first. But we're just basing this off his college resume, and his college resume is very impressive. So, he's a blue chip prospect in the first round. He's pretty much can't miss. When I say can't miss, I mean, the attitude is there. He's not going to get in trouble off the field. He's not doing stupid things. So if it doesn't work out, it's just more or less he wasn't good enough. It's not going to be because of some outside factor. And you got to take that into consideration whenever you draft a player. There's no guarantee that any player is going to work out. But the more problems that they possibly could have that have nothing to do with football, you got to mark them up. You'd be like, all right, he has this incident. He's got that incident. These are serious. Let's not go there. But Caleb Downs is not that guy. Seems like football is very important to him. And the Steelers obviously need a big-time safety, so I'm not going to complain if they go that route. And also, the Steelers need a linebacker. We've been horrible stopping the run. Yeah, you gave Patrick Queen big money. Peyton Wilson, hopefully under this coaching staff, he's a better linebacker. Still very productive. But if we're being honest, you could still say it's a weak point in the defense. Safety, middle linebacker, and offensive tackle. So this whole narrative that the Steelers have to draft a quarterback or go in wide receiver, I just think it's ridiculous. Analyst says not completely sold on Dylan Cook. Tackle should be in play at the 21st overall. I agree. Steve, the 33rd team, Steve Palazzo, Broderick Jones doesn't have a secure long-term future in Pittsburgh, and although Cook looked good late in 2025, it was on a small sample size. Too little to trust for Palazzo, who thinks the Steelers should consider drafting a tackle in the first round. Now, the one thing I can't figure out is if Dylan Cook, was he good? Or was Aaron Rodgers just getting rid of the ball so quickly? Because he was getting rid of the ball very quickly. Palazzo said Monday on his Check the Mic podcast, he might be a find at left tackle. I'm not completely sold. It's like, is tackle in play? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen film of him on Dylan Cook being broke down by a ball dinger. And, if you watch the film, it's not just Aaron Rodgers getting rid of the ball fast. I watched the breakdowns of his film, and he was dominant in his play. And he was dominant against some very good pass rushers. But I understand the sentiment at is he really the guy? Can we trust him to start a whole 17-game season? Is he really going to be that type of player? So the Steelers really have big decisions to make here. Do you want to switch, put Cook at guard? I mean, I don't even know if he could play guard, but big decision time. A lot of up in the airs, especially the Broderick Jones injury. I don't think the Steelers are completely sold. Do I think they're completely sold on Dylan Cook? Who knows? I don't think so at this point. So I've said my piece. I don't want to keep repeating myself. Supposedly, the Steelers are not frustrated by Aaron Rodgers' decision timeline. Well, they don't really have a lot of options, do they? What's your next option? Will Howard, a player that's never played in the preseason? Mason Rudolph? You guys going to have to ride this one out. Adam Schefter said Monday on the Pat McAfee show, the Steelers are not frustrated. I just think people thought there would be an answer. I remember asking various people, and they're like, we should have an answer within 30 days. And then 30 days came and went, Schefter said. I'm like, where are we at now? We should have an answer mid-March. It's mid-March. Why don't we have an answer? Now we have Art Rooney II saying we should have an answer before the draft. We going to have an answer? I don't know. Wait and see. As Schefter mentioned, Art Rooney II said the Steelers expect to have a decision from Rodgers before the NFL draft. The draft begins a week from Thursday, and it's been all quiet on the Rodgers front. If the decision doesn't come until the draft, Schefter wondered if the Steelers will take a quarterback higher than they may have originally planned. With Rooney publicly declaring that the team expected a decision by the draft, it's fair to wonder if frustration will set in if one doesn't come by then. Let me tell you something. Let me just tell you my opinion. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't give the Steelers a decision before the draft, I think we should just move on and say F it. Because it would be the most selfish thing that you could possibly do as a player on a team sport. How about just give them an effing answer? How about that? And I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers isn't, but it pisses me off. It does. And let's just say hypothetically, we go into the draft not knowing if Aaron Rodgers, he's doing this bullshit again. Maybe, I might. You know what? It's time to say F you and move on and just turn the page. Because it is exhausting after a while. And let's call it for what it is. It's annoying. It's exhausting. Just give an effing answer and act like an adult and a grown-up. Or go retire and go back to Malibu and do what you want to do. I'm getting over it at this point. And if that happens, and it puts the Steelers in a weird predicament come draft time because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to give a decision, I'll really have nothing good to say about Aaron Rodgers ever again because it's super selfish. So there better be an answer before the draft or you can F off. That's my opinion. Pissing me off now. Not in a mood for the stupid stuff this year. I'm really not. Beat writer comes out, says awfully quiet on the South Side. Beat writer notes unusual lack of draft info coming from Steelers. Yeah, that's because we have a new sheriff in town that's running the team. Why give other teams information? You know, why let other teams know what you might want to, who you want to take? I'm glad. Everything points to me to wide receiver still, but it's been awfully quiet on the South Side. KABOLY said Monday via 93.7 The Fans Morning Show. I completely disagree with this take and this narrative. Everything to KABOLY, who works for the team behind the scenes, points to wide receiver. Really, KABOLY? The amount of money they got in DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. is like an outrageous amount of money. Now, fine, the first round draft, he's not going to get paid huge money, but do you really think after all the money they spent, they're going to go round? Michael Pittman Jr. is still young. DK Metcalf is still young. Why would they go wide receiver round one? Now, fine, KABOLY could be playing the game for the Steelers. I could see that. I could see KABOLY being like, let me plant the landmines because I'm Steeler. I'm black and gold all the way. So I'm part of the process of making teams think we're going to take a receiver. So they jump for a receiver, but we're really not. Maybe, I mean, KABOLY will never admit to this. You know, I would like to say, do you really believe that? Or, you know, they're not going to admit it on air and be like, well, we're trying to help the organization. But I get it. If the beat writers are doing that to plant the seed, like, oh, you better take a receiver because the Steelers are going to take one, and the Steelers are really going in a different direction. The Steelers play this type of warfare all the time, so. Then KABOLY went on to say, I don't know if that's because the new regime and not a lot of people know anybody and not a lot of talking. It could be a little bit of everything, but you really get a good feel, but you really don't really get a good feel on anything. And that's why people are doing mock drafts and just throwing new things against the wall. Typically, beat writers slowly leak out information as they hear it, which shapes the consensus opinion and narrows down mock drafts to a few prospects. Derek Carman was one of the most frequently mocked picks for the Steelers last year, for example. Jerry Dulac has floated the idea of a tight end and specifically named Kenyon Sadiq as a potential Steelers target. Multiple other reports have been focused on wide receivers throughout the process, and that line of thinking didn't change much after the Steelers traded for Michael Pittman Jr. in early March. Then there's conventional logic, which says guard is the biggest actual position of need. The Steelers Pro Day and pre-visit draft trail both suggest defensive backs and linebackers could be in play. That's what I agree on. Now, fine. I mean, if I'm sitting next to Art Rooney and I'm trying to help the organization, I'm going to pump out I'm going to lie. I guess I'm going to have to lie. But like, yeah, we really want a receiver. Meanwhile, we want Caleb Downs. Or we want Sonny Styles, or we want, a top-notch linebacker from Georgia. And I'm going out there and I'm pumping this narrative, oh, the Steelers are going to take a wide receiver. I mean, the boss is the boss, and you can't go against the boss. And when you want what's best for the black and gold, I guess sometimes you got to play these games. But, yeah, I do believe that the Steelers are more or less interested on the defensive side of the ball. Kevin Colbert reveals new consulting position with Ohio State. Well, Kevin, I mean, you had some decent years, and then you had some couple bad years. Ohio State seemed to be doing pretty good, but hey, let's hope you pick up your game a notch. Appearing on the Inside the Game podcast with Pierre Maguire, Colbert revealed he's working with the Ohio State Buckeyes football program and talked about his role. I did Colorado State last year. I won't be with them this coming season. They changed their coaching staff, and I had a chance to stay, but I just felt like it was a good time to move on into some different endeavors, Colbert said, according to video via the show's YouTube page. I do some work with Ohio State evaluating their draft-eligible players, and giving them an opinion as to whether they should enter the NFL draft or stay for more development, and so on and so forth. So right now, that's the only college I'm working with. As the director of football operations and then GM of the Steelers from 2000 to 2022, Colbert had a long, lucrative relationship with the Buckeyes, helping him land key pieces like wide receiver San Antonio Holmes, defensive lineman Cam Hayward, and linebacker Ryan Shazier as first-round picks in his tenure. The Steelers consistently attended Ohio State Pro Day, especially during former head coach Mike Tomlin's tenure, and had a strong relationship with the Buckeyes overall. Oh, good for him. I hope he's working out. I mean, good for him, and hope he's doing well. But, you know, Ohio State, they seem to be getting it right on their own. Let's see what else is going on in Steeler world. KABOLY names offensive weapons Steelers could take over anybody if available. Tight end wouldn't be one of the Pittsburgh's top 5 needs if you rank the team in order, but there's been a lot of buzz about them using a high draft pick at that position lately. One top insider recently named Kenyon Sadiq as a surprise first-round option for the Steelers, and now that Pat McAfee shows Mark KABOLY is pushing the same idea. I think it's wide receiver. I think it's close. It all depends on who's going to be there. Sadiq, I don't think you go get him, but if he's there at 21, you take him over anybody. KABOLY said Monday on 93.7 The Fan's morning show. There might be a big enough gap that you can convince yourself that at 21, that's the guy you pick regardless of who else is on the board. I don't think he's going to make it that far. I think he's top 10 to 12. If a receiver is what the Steelers really want, Sadiq would be a creative way to fill that need. He's an undersized tight end at 6'3.5", 241, but he ran a record-breaking 4.39 40-yard dash at the combine and jumped an absurd 43.5-inch vertical. He also blossomed into a productive receiver in his third and final season at Oregon, with 51 receptions for 560 yards and 8 touchdowns. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather go defensive side of the ball. You know, when's the last time you see safeties that are coming out that are getting talked about, like Caleb Downs? Do I think tight ends are easier to find? Yeah, I do. I think tight ends and wide receivers are easier to find than, you know, safeties, corners, and linebackers. That's just my opinion. I'm always going to be biased. I'm always going to lean towards defense. And I don't think, I mean, the Steelers for the last 19 years haven't ran routes over the middle of the field. So do we even know what Pat Freiermuth can really do if you stop living in our fears and threw the ball over the middle? Because every time Pat Freiermuth catches a ball over the middle of the field, it looks like he runs for 30 to 55 yards. I don't know. I don't think we should go tight end. That's my opinion. A lot of talk that KABOLY also thinks that Patrick Queen's This will be Patrick Queen's last year with the Steelers. Queens found his name in trade rumors this offseason, while beat writer Mark KABOLY doesn't think a trade is likely. He expects Queens to move on from the Steelers after the 2026 season. If you're looking at Patrick Queen, I think maybe this is his last year. I don't think he's interested in coming back after this year. We're signing an extension, right? I don't believe that's the case, KABOLY said Monday on 93.7 The Fan. Queen trade rumors specifically involved the Dallas Cowboys. It was reported that Dallas was looking at Queen in early March, but nothing materialized then, and Queen is still on the roster a little over a week away from the NFL. Well, I mean, they just gave him a huge roster signing bonus. He's not going anywhere. Patrick Queen's not going anywhere. So, but here's the thing. I think he'll be gone after the 2026 season for one simple reason. He's a Southern guy. He likes hot weather. He probably doesn't like the cold weather. If I talk to him personally, the first question I would ask him is, tell me the truth. You want to leave Pittsburgh because it's cold, correct? And I bet you he would say, yeah. You know, the cuisine, the jambalaya, he's from Louisiana. Culturally, the food is a lot different. The weather is a lot different. He probably wanted to go to Dallas just for those reasons alone, never mind football reasons. But, you know, I get it. You know, Troy always had that issue. You know, he wanted to train in California in the offseason. He didn't like the cold weather. He always wanted to be on the West Coast. There's players that are like that. You know, if that's going to make Patrick Queen a happier person, happier player, then more power to him. But I expect the same thing. I don't see him coming back with the Steelers after this year. That's my opinion. Chad Johnson says, Steelers in a heap of trouble if Aaron Rodgers retires. Not sure Will Howard is the answer. Well, nobody really knows if Will Howard's the answer. He didn't even make it to the preseason. Former NFL receiver Chad Johnson can't believe the Steelers are still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, come on, Chad, let's be serious. They don't have a lot of options here. This reset should have started 10 years ago. We're in this position now, dealing with Aaron Rodgers and doing what we're going through because of Art Rooney II. He didn't want to get rid of Tomlin. Tomlin resigned. He wasn't fired. They were going to do this all over again. So now we have to wait. We have to deal with things like with Aaron Rodgers because Mike Tomlin in 19 years couldn't draft or develop a quarterback. Simple as that. So don't blame the Steelers because Art Rooney gave Mike Tomlin the keys to the Ferrari. He was calling the shots. This is what Chad Johnson had to say. He still gives you the best chance to win. I mean, he just does. That's why he can't pull the shenanigans that he does. You know what? I'll let you know when I'm ready to come back. Knowing good well, you know you coming back. Why even play this game? Johnson said Sunday on his Nightcap podcast. Well, here, let me give you a glimpse of Aaron Rodgers' personality. And I can really, really see him doing this. The media has treated Aaron Rodgers horribly, super unfairly, because he was anti-jabber. They try to ruin his reputation, his character. They try to destroy him through the media. And I could literally, you're going to be like, that's idiotic take. I could literally see an Aaron Rodgers already telling Art Rooney, like, hey, listen, do me a favor. I'm coming back. We know that. But just let the media speculate and do what they do and let them drive themselves crazy. Just because for 20 years they've treated me like complete shit and try to ruin my name and reputation. So I could really see Aaron Rodgers doing something like that. But I'll say it again. If draft time comes and it gets reported that, you know, Aaron Rodgers left the Steelers hanging, he didn't give them an answer, so they were undecided, so they reached for a quarterback, and then it set the organization back because the pick failed, I'm be super pissed at Aaron Rodgers. And I defended him last year. The only reason why we won any games last year was because of Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers don't sign with the Steelers last year, the Steelers probably win 2 games the entire season. And, you know, if Aaron Rodgers decides to turn it in, I don't think the Steelers are going to have, I think we'll be like 2 games below 500. If we rock with Will Howard and we just say, you know what, we're going to let him start the whole season. Hopefully we make it to the playoffs, but I don't think that's not my prediction if Will Howard starts. We might be 500 or a game below, but we'll have to wait and see. But this is all because of Tomlin. And everybody could say what they want. That's the big elephant in the room nobody wants to talk about. Couldn't draft or develop a quarterback in 19 years. So we are in this mess because of Tomlin. Well, you're saying the same thing over and over again. Well, you know what pisses me off is because nobody acknowledges it. Nobody. It's like, oh, you can't say that. Well, too bad. I just did. There's some speculation that Nick Herbig is not going to come back to the Steelers. Here, it's going to be real simple. If you don't create a package for Nick Herbig to be a starter, an elephant package where he's on the field getting majority of the snaps, you're not going to see Nick Herbig in the black and gold anymore. He's going to leave free agency. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Coach Tomlin did not get a good, remember, Nick Herbig's the captain today. Then he plays 2 snaps the rest of the game. Dakota Miller, 1089 in the super chat says, does Tomlin have a kid on the way? Yeah, supposedly the child was already born. The girl, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the town she's from in Pittsburgh. She had to sign a confidentiality agreement, and she had to move to Florida, and she got like $2.5 million. Oh, she's from Newcastle. But the rumor is that Coach Tomlin had a baby daughter, and the girl signed an agreement to move to Florida. I hear that's one of the reasons why Tomlin went to Florida also. But not only was his wife mad that he cheated, but, the child lives in Florida, so it's easier for him to see the child. The young girl had to sign a confidentiality agreement, and supposedly she got about $2.5 million to $3 million. That's what I heard, Dakota Miller. But that's the rumor mill. Logan Lee eyeing bigger role in 2026. I understand my role. That's the one thing that was good about this past season, that I was able to see and establish a role. And my role is to contribute and not be a primary player yet. I'd really like to work my way into a bigger role this year. Lee said on Off the Air with Matt Randazzo. Lee admitted that not being a primary player was an adjustment for him after being a star in high school and at Iowa, but said he's found some perks in his role with the Steelers. It's coming off Oregon High School, where I never came off the field unless we were winning by 30, or Iowa, where I would get 65 plays a game, he said. It was really a big wake-up call for me because you have to be ready when your number's called. It's hard to stay warm on the sideline. Yeah, I could say that again. Especially late in the year in Pittsburgh. It's nice because it forces you not to think as much because you have to just play ball. Well, I wish him the best. He's had some injuries. Gigantic guy. I'm not saying this because he's a Caucasianoid, but he kind of reminds me his body build, the way he's built, kind of like Aaron Smith. I think he's actually leaner than Aaron Smith, and but he's been nicked up, been banged up, but he's a giant-sized lineman, and he's a good person, so hopefully it works out. Aaron Smith was a great player for the Steelers. Not a good player, a great player. You couldn't move him. When the Steelers were in a legitimate 3-4 defense, that's where Keanu Benton needs to be. He needs to be a defensive end. Aaron Smith, great player. Won't make the Hall of Fame. Unselfish guy. You really had to bring your lunchbox to work when you played against him. Physical, violent player on the field. Great person off the field. Let me end it with this article. Mike Mitchell, who I was never a big fan of, I felt like it was more bark than substance. That's just my opinion. I mean, he made plays from here or there, but that was that new crew that Mike Tomlin brought in, the Young Money crew. Troy Polamalu referenced this a couple times. He didn't really like the direction of the team. This is what Leonard Fournette said. Homie was out there tripping. Leonard Fournette explains taunting ex-Steelers safety Mike Mitchell in 2017. The Pittsburgh Steelers looked like Super Bowl contenders in 2017, but those hopes got crushed in the first playoff game. The Jacksonville Jaguars came to Pittsburgh and left with the win, breaking the city's heart. And I'm not just saying this, because you talk about Tomlin all the time. I was sitting at Applebee's watching this game, and I was like, there is no way that Tomlin keeps his job after this game. I was like, if he doesn't get fired after this Jaguars game, he's never getting fired. And we all know what happened after that. To add insult to injury, that was the second time it happened that season. The Steelers previously for anybody that doesn't remember, there's still like 3 minutes left on the clock. Tomlin decides to kick an onside kick to the third string linebacker, Tyler Medovich. I can't pronounce his name for the life of me. It gets picked up by the Jaguars. And Leonard Fournette, I think they run one sweep, or I think they get a play, and then they run another sweep for 20 yards, and the game is over. So at that point, you have a Troy Polamalu-led defense. You have one of the best defenses ever. Blake Bortles is the quarterback for the Jaguars. Horrible. Tomlin's got his timeouts left. You don't kick the ball deep with that defense, and you got Big Ben, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell on offense, and I think you were down by 4 or 3. You know, Medikevich fumbles the ball, or he didn't. I mean, I don't know what happened. He didn't get the onside kick off. He didn't fumble it, but I'm just thinking to myself, that's, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me after that game how Tomlin wasn't shredded in the media. I mean, he might have got shredded a little bit in the Pittsburgh local media. And we all know what to expect from ESPN. But that was some of the worst game management I've ever seen in my life with the talent that he had. And after that, I always said to myself, you got Big Ben, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. You still had a Troy Polamalu-led defense with James Harrison and some of the holdovers from the Bill Cowher roster. If Tomlin couldn't win a Super Bowl with that talent, superior talent, there ain't talent coming out of the draft anytime soon that was better than those players. Just not going to happen. Never mind the offensive line that we had. I was like, he'll never win the Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. There you go. So let me get back to what I was saying, because I'm traumatized from that whole experience. To add insult to injury, that was the second time it happened that season. The Steelers previously got blown out by the Jags in weeks 5 that year. Running back Leonard Fournette was the engine behind that victory and was feeling so confident that he taunted Steelers safety Mike Mitchell on a run, asking for contact. Hopefully it plays. Let's see. Whatever. Fournette recently explained the background behind that moment. Mike Mitchell, I got respect for him. Fournette said on his Fourth and South podcast, homie was out there tripping. I'm like, brother, I'm not trying to go there with you, but I ain't one of them. I ain't no BI, you know what. I kept telling him, F it, we got our one-on-one. I'm like, come on, let me see what you're working with. Mitchell was a 9-year veteran at that point in his 4th season with the Steelers. He was a starter that entire time, and while he had issues, he was dependable. Unfortunately, the rookie Fournette got the better of him that day. Fournette finished that game with 28 carries for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. He dominated the Steelers, embarrassing them in their home stadium. While the Steelers only lost 3 games that season, the Jaguars' loss was particularly ugly. Mitchell's trash talk came back to bite Pittsburgh. The play came with little less than 11 minutes left in the 4th quarter, and the Steelers were down 20-9. They had a slim chance to win, and they needed to stop on that drive. Let me skip over that a little bit. Fournette even threw some salt in the wound by rushing for a 90-yard touchdown shortly after the 2-minute warning. That summed up the Steelers' day pretty well. As he explained during that game, during that same episode, Fournette didn't even settle it until after the first half of that game. That was probably my 3rd or 4th professional game. That was a physical-ass game. It's so much that's going through my mind that I couldn't really play how I wanted until the second half. I wasn't comfortable. Fournette isn't wrong. He had only 37 rushing yards in the first half. The Jags were only up 7-6 at halftime, too. It wasn't until the second half that things started to get out of hand for Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, the Steelers didn't learn any lessons from that matchup. The Jags came back to Pittsburgh a few months later and dominated again. Fournette had another nice day as well, running for 109 yards and 3 touchdowns. His play spoke louder than... Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the game. I'm pretty sure that was the playoff game that I was referencing, but Hey, that's what happened. Mike Mitchell, he had his moments. He was, tough, rugged player. Again, I felt it was more bark than bite sometimes, but we all have different opinions. He was a solid player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, I'm going to end it with that. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football. The 4, 1, 2.